What you're about to hear is the story of a guy who got rear-ended on his way home from work. Other driver jumps out, grabs his neck like he just got hit by a freight train. A witness magically appears out of thin air to back up the story. Insurance company calls, rates about to double, and Cole's sitting there thinking his life just got a whole lot more expensive. But here's the thing about Cole. He had a little camera on his windshield that nobody bothered to check. And what it recorded? It turned a fake accident into a real felony. Buckle up because this one is chef's kiss. A guy brake checked me on purpose and faked Whiplash. His witness was in on it. They didn't know about my dash cam. I need to get this off my chest because it's been the wildest 3 weeks of my life, and I still can't believe how it played out. So a little background on me. My name's Cole. I'm 31. I work as a project estimator for a commercial roofing company based out of Columbus, Ohio. For those who don't know what that means, basically I drive around to job sites, measure roofs, look at damage, figure out material costs, and put together bids. It's not glamorous work, but it pays decent, and I'm good at it. I've been with the company about 4 years now, and I handle most of the central Ohio territory by myself, which means I'm in my car a lot. My boss, a guy named Ray, is solid. Good dude, doesn't micromanage. Lets me run my territory how I want as long as the numbers come in. The rest of the crew is fine too. There's a senior estimator named Patrick, who's been there like 12 years, and basically knows every building code in the state from memory, and a couple of junior guys who mostly handle residential. I drive a 2019 Honda Accord. Nothing fancy, nothing beat up. Gets me from site to site. I put about 35,000 miles on it last year alone, which my mechanic loves to remind me about every oil change. The one smart thing I did, and honestly I almost didn't do it, was install a dash cam about 8 months ago. My buddy Garrett had been bugging me about it forever. Like, forever. This man would send me YouTube compilations of car crashes and scams at least twice a week. Just random videos at like 10 p.m. on a weeknight with captions like, "Bro, you drive 35,000 miles a year and you don't have one of these?" I ignored him for months. Thought it was overkill. Thought I was a good enough driver that I'd never need it. And I almost didn't buy one at all. I had it in my online cart for 2 weeks before I finally hit purchase one night when I was bored. Dropped like $85 on a basic front-facing camera from the internet. Nothing crazy. It records in a loop and saves to a micro SD card. Garrett came over on a Saturday and helped me wire it into the rearview mirror area, so it turns on automatically with the car. Took us about an hour and a half, and we mostly spent it arguing about where to route the cable. He wanted it hidden behind the headliner. I just wanted it done. I barely ever thought about it after that. It was just this little black box stuck to my windshield that I honestly forgot was there most days. Never checked the footage. Never reviewed a single clip. It was just there, running. Anyway, it was a Tuesday in mid-March. I'd been out in Westerville doing a roof estimate for a strip mall that got nailed by a storm the previous weekend. Big job, like 6 different sections of commercial membrane roofing, all with different damage patterns. Took me most of the afternoon climbing around up there, taking measurements, photos, all of it. I had to redo one section twice because my laser measure was acting weird in the cold, and I kept getting numbers that didn't make sense. By the time I packed up, it was about 5:15, and I was beat. Not injured, tired, just that kind of drained where you want to go home, microwave something, and sit on the couch for 4 hours. I remember I texted my girlfriend Brooke something like, "Leaving Westerville, long day, want me to pick up anything?" And she said no, so I just headed for the highway. I'm heading south on 270, regular commute route. Traffic was moderate, not bumper to bumper, but not wide open either. Moving maybe 50, 55 in a 65 zone because everyone was clumped up in that post-work wave. I'm in the middle lane, got a podcast going, just zoned into autopilot mode like any other drive home. Then this silver Nissan Altima comes flying up on my left. And I mean flying. Weaving between lanes. I noticed it because it was one of those cars where you just know the driver is either late for something or has zero regard for everyone else on the road. The kind of car you see and think, okay, I'm gonna let that guy get way ahead of me. But he didn't get ahead. He cut into my lane maybe 2 car lengths in front of me. No signal. Just jerked the wheel right and slid in. And before I could even process it, before I could even lift my foot off the gas, his brake lights lit up solid red. Full stop. Not a tap, not a slowdown. He stomped on his brakes like a deer jumped in front of him. I slammed mine. Tires screeching. I could feel the ABS kicking in, that grinding pulse through the pedal. But there wasn't enough room. There was never going to be enough room. He made sure of that. I hit the back of his car going maybe 15, 20 miles an hour. My airbag didn't go off, which I took as a decent sign. My seatbelt locked up and dug into my shoulder and chest pretty good. The front of my Accord was pushed in. Hood buckled, bumper cracked, coolant leaking. His Altima had a crunched rear bumper and a busted taillight, but honestly looked way less damaged than mine. I sat there for a second, with my hands shaking on the wheel, heart going crazy. That adrenaline dump where everything feels sharp and slow at the same time. The podcast was still playing, some guy talking about the Roman Empire or something. And I remember reaching over and turning it off because the normalcy of it felt wrong. Like, my car just got wrecked and this dude is still talking about aqueducts. I put my hazards on and pulled to the right shoulder as much as I could. Cars were swerving around us. A couple people honked, which felt nice. Thanks for the support, everyone. He pulled over too, about 30 feet ahead. And then the show started. This guy, later I'd find out his name was Dominic, maybe mid-30s, stocky build, gets out of his car and immediately grabs the back of his neck with both hands. I mean, immediately. Like the second his feet hit pavement, he was already in character. He's wincing, doing that thing where you tilt your head to one side and suck air through your teeth. Walking with this exaggerated stiffness like his spine was made of glass. I got out and walked up to him. I was shaken up. Genuinely. My hands were still trembling. I said something like, "Hey man, are you okay? I'm sorry. You stopped really fast." I was trying to be decent about it. I figured it was just a regular accident, and I was the one who hit him from behind, so, that's usually on you. He looks at me, and I'll never forget the look on his face because it was so rehearsed, and goes, "Bro, my neck. My neck is messed up. I can't even turn my head. You were going way too fast." I said I wasn't, that he'd cut in front of me, but he just kept shaking his head, which for a guy who supposedly couldn't turn his neck, he was moving it around quite a bit. He pulled out his phone and called 911. Right there. Told the operator he'd been rear-ended by a reckless driver going at least 70, and that he had severe neck and back pain and needed an ambulance. 70. I was doing maybe 52 in a clump of traffic. But okay. Sure thing, Dominic. I should mention, I was completely calm on the phone with 911 myself. I called right after he did, gave them the mile marker, described both vehicles, said nobody appeared to have serious injuries. The operator was nice. Asked me if I needed medical attention. I said no. My neck was a little stiff from the seatbelt catching me, but nothing that felt like an actual injury. So we're standing there on the shoulder waiting for the cops and the ambulance, and I'm watching this guy put on an absolute clinic. He's pacing slowly, stopping to grab his neck every few steps, leaning against his car with his eyes closed like he might pass out. At one point, he sat down on the guardrail and put his head in his hands. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then the witness showed up. A guy walks up from behind us, on foot, and goes, "Hey, I saw the whole thing. I was right behind you guys." He introduced himself as Vince, probably late 20s, thin, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. He said he saw me flying up on this guy's bumper, and that I definitely caused the accident. And I'm standing there thinking, wait, I didn't see anyone right behind us. The lane behind me had been pretty clear. Where did this dude come from? But I didn't say anything. I was still in shock mode. Still had that brain fog thing where you're replaying the crash in your head on a loop and barely processing what people are saying to you. Vince gave his info to Dominic. They exchanged something, looked like phone numbers. And Vince was talking to Dominic with this familiarity, like he knew him. He put his hand on Dominic's shoulder at one point and said, "Don't worry, I saw everything. I'll back you up." That phrase stuck with me. I'll back you up. Not, I'll tell the truth. Not, I'll tell them what I saw. I'll back you up. The cops showed up about 10 minutes later. An officer took my statement, took Dominic's statement, took Vince's statement. Dominic was still doing the neck thing, milking it. The ambulance came and he actually got on the stretcher. Full stretcher. neck brace and everything. They loaded him up and drove off. The officer told me that since I hit him from behind, the report would likely reflect that I was at fault, unless I had evidence showing otherwise. I said okay because I genuinely didn't know what else to say. I gave him my insurance info. He gave me the case number. My car got towed. I called an Uber home. The Uber driver tried to make small talk, and I just sat in the back seat giving one-word answers, which I felt bad about, but I had nothing left in the tank. Tipped him good, though, because that's not his fault. Brooke was home when I got there. She could tell something was wrong immediately. I told her what happened, just the basic version, the collision part, the other driver claiming whiplash. She asked if I was hurt, and I said I was fine. She made me put ice on my shoulder where the seatbelt dug in, and I sat there holding a bag of frozen corn on my collarbone, feeling like an idiot. That night, I sat on my couch eating cold leftover pasta and just staring at the wall. I was running the whole thing through my head. The way he cut in. The instant brake slam. The way he grabbed his neck before he even looked at the damage. The way Vince appeared from nowhere. The way they talked to each other. Something was off. I knew it was off. I just couldn't prove it. And then I remembered the dash cam. I honestly got a chill, like a literal cold wave down my arms. I'd completely forgotten about it. Garrett's stupid little $85 camera sitting up there on my windshield, recording everything, and I hadn't thought about it once since the crash. I barely slept, kept waking up and staring at the ceiling, running the numbers. If my rates doubled, that's an extra 100 and something a month. Times however many years, that stays on my record. Plus whatever Dominic was going to squeeze out of the claim. And I had no defense. A rear-end collision with a witness statement backing the other guy? I was cooked, unless the camera got it. I called the tow yard first thing the next morning, asked if my car was accessible. The lady on the phone sounded like she'd answered this question 900 times that day. She said, yeah, it was in their lot. I could come by during business hours. I took an Uber there on my lunch break, had to sign in at the office, show my ID, fill out a form. The guy walked me out to where my Accord was sitting in a row of other wrecked cars. The front end was ugly, hood crumpled, bumper hanging at an angle, fluid stains on the concrete under it. But the cab was fine. Windshield wasn't cracked. And there it was. Garrett's little black box, still mounted right where we'd stuck it 8 months ago, still intact. The power light was off because the car was dead, but the SD card was in there. I popped it out with my thumbnail, thanked the tow yard guy, and took the Uber back to work. Sat in the break room with my laptop and plugged the card in with a little adapter I keep in my bag. The footage was all there. Okay, hold on. For the listeners, this is me, not the OP. I need to jump in here because I've been holding this in. This guy Dominic, let's call him what he is, the stuntman. Bro grabbed his neck like he was auditioning for a Fast and Furious stunt double role. The car barely tapped him, and he's out there acting like he got hit by a city bus. I've seen better medical performances from soccer players. At least they have the excuse of being on live TV. This dude did it on the shoulder of a highway for an audience of one confused roofer. And the neck brace? The stretcher? Someone get this man a SAG card. Anyway, the footage. You're gonna want to hear this. I watched it 3 times, front to back, and each time my jaw dropped a little more. The dash cam had a wide-angle lens, so it caught a good chunk of the road. You could see the silver Altima come up on the left, accelerate past a couple cars, and then cut right. No signal, no hesitation. Directly into my lane with barely any gap. It was clearly intentional. Not a oops I didn't see you merge. The kind of move where the steering is sharp and confident. He knew exactly what he was doing. Then, maybe 2 seconds after getting in front of me, his brake lights go solid. No reason. Nobody in front of him. The lane ahead was completely clear for at least 10 car lengths. He just stomped on it. You could see my hood dip as I hit the brakes, then the impact. The camera shook. Then it stabilized and kept recording. But here's the part that made my stomach flip. About 8 seconds after the impact, while both cars are sitting on the shoulder with hazards on, you can see in the right edge of the frame another car pulling over behind us. A dark blue Chevy Malibu. It pulls onto the shoulder maybe 50 feet back, and a guy gets out. Vince. The witness who saw the whole thing didn't see anything. He pulled over after the crash. He came from behind, from a car that had been following Dominic. I went back and looked at the earlier footage, and sure enough, about 2 minutes before the lane change, you can spot the blue Malibu hanging back in the right lane, trailing the Altima. Same speed, same spacing, moving together. They were a team. Dominic was the hitter. Vince was the fake witness. They'd done this before. I'd bet anything on it. The whole thing was choreographed. Cut in, brake slam, rear-end collision, fake injury, fake witness, file the claim, collect the check. I saved the footage to my laptop, backed it up to a USB drive, and emailed a copy to myself. Then I texted Garrett 2 words. "You were right." He called me back in about 40 seconds. I told him what happened and what the camera caught, and he just kept saying, "I told you," over and over. I let him have his moment. Then I sat there for about 10 minutes just processing. Partly angry, partly relieved, mostly just amazed that these guys thought they could pull this off in 2026 without considering that maybe, just maybe, somebody had a camera running. Like, I get that not everyone has a dash cam, but enough people do that you'd think a professional scammer would at least check the windshield before committing a felony. Wait. Let me break this down for you. This man Vince, the witness, walked up on foot like he was just some random good citizen. I saw the whole thing. Bro, you were in a car, following your buddy. You didn't witness an accident. You were part of the operation. This is like being the getaway driver and then showing up at the police station going, "Oh, weird. I also happened to see who robbed that bank." The audacity of these two running a buddy system scam in broad daylight on a highway is both terrifying and the dumbest criminal plan since those guys who robbed a bank and posted the money on social media. Like, did nobody consider there might be cameras in 2026? So here's where it gets interesting. The next day, this is now Wednesday, Thursday, I get a call from my insurance company. I was actually on a job site when the call came in, standing on the roof of a warehouse in Hilliard with my measurement tools out, and I had to climb back down the ladder to take it in my rental car. A claims adjuster named Linda. Very professional, very by the book. She tells me that Dominic has filed a claim. He's claiming severe whiplash, neck strain, and lower back injury. He says he's been to the emergency room, which I guess was the ambulance ride, and has follow-up appointments with a specialist. He's also claiming lost wages. And his witness, Vince, has provided a statement backing up Dominic's version of events. That I was tailgating, that I was going too fast, that the collision was entirely my fault. Linda told me that based on the police report and the witness statement, my rates were going up. She didn't say by how much, but she said substantially. She also said Dominic's claim could be in the range of $30,000 to $50,000, depending on the medical bills. $50,000. For a fender bender this guy caused on purpose. I sat in that rental car in the Hilliard parking lot for a solid 5 minutes after she told me the number. I was doing the math in my head. My rates doubling. A $50,000 claim. My driving record getting wrecked. I'd been with this insurance company since I was 22 and never had a single claim. 9 years of clean driving, and this guy was about to torch all of it for a payday. And then I smiled, because I remembered what was sitting on my laptop at home. I told Linda I had dashcam footage. There was a pause on the line. A real pause. Then she said, "Can you send that to me?" I said, "Give me your email and I'll have it to you in 5 minutes." And I did. I sent the full unedited clip from 2 minutes before the collision through the aftermath, including Vince getting out of the Malibu. I also wrote up a summary of what I observed. The deliberate lane change, the brake slam with no obstruction ahead, the witness arriving from a trailing vehicle, and the familiarity between Dominic and Vince at the scene. Linda called me back about 2 hours later. Different tone. She said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "Mr. Harris, we're going to need to involve our special investigations unit. What you've provided us is significant." That was the word she used. Significant. I liked the sound of it. Hold on a second. I need you to appreciate the timing here. Cole's sitting at home eating cold pasta, thinking his insurance is about to skyrocket because of some dude who drives like he's in a demolition derby and acts like he's in a soap opera. Meanwhile, there's an $85 camera, $85, just quietly holding the receipts. Dominic was out there building a $50,000 insurance claim, and the entire thing got torpedoed by a device that costs less than a pair of decent running shoes. The man filed for 50 grand and got outplayed by something you can buy on a lunch break. I need you to sit with that for a second, because what comes next is even better. Over the next week and a half, things moved faster than I expected. The insurance company's special investigations unit, which I didn't even know was a thing, opened a case. They reviewed the footage. They pulled Dominic's claims history. And apparently this wasn't his first rodeo. I found out later, not from Linda, from the detective, that Dominic had filed 3 previous injury claims in the last 4 years. 3. All rear-end collisions. All with witness corroboration. Different cities, different insurance companies, but the same playbook. Cut in, brake, crash, perform, collect. The stuntman had been running this scam for years. The detective who contacted me was a guy named Wes from the county fraud unit. Real calm, real methodical. He asked me to come in and give a formal statement. I did. Brought the USB drive with the footage. He watched the whole thing on his desk monitor without saying a word. Then he leaned back and went, "Yeah, this is textbook staging." He explained to me how these rings work, and honestly, it was kind of fascinating in a messed up way. You've got the driver who causes the collision, that's the bull. That's Dominic. You've got the spotter or fake witness, that's the shill, that's Vince. Sometimes there's a third person, a runner, who refers the victim to a specific clinic or attorney that's in on the cut. And sometimes there's even a fourth person, a crooked doctor who writes up fake medical reports to support the injury claim. Wes said they hadn't connected Dominic to a specific medical provider yet, but they were looking. It's organized. It's not just 2 guys winging it. Wes told me they'd been tracking a pattern of staged collisions in the metro area, but hadn't been able to get clean evidence. Every time, it was one driver's word against another. No cameras, no proof of coordination. Until now. My dash cam footage was, according to Wes, the cleanest piece of evidence we've had in 18 months on this. I didn't know whether to feel proud or disturbed that this happens often enough for there to be an 18-month investigation. About a week after my meeting with Wes, I got a call from him. He sounded almost excited, which for a fraud detective is saying something. He told me they'd moved forward. Both Dominic and Vince were arrested. Dominic was charged with insurance fraud, filing a false police report, and reckless driving. Vince was charged with insurance fraud, conspiracy, and filing a false statement. The detective told me they also found communication between the two on Dominic's phone, text messages coordinating the setup. Things like, "I'll be in the right lane, you follow in the Malibu, and remember, neck and back, not head. Remember, neck and back, not head." They literally had a script for which body parts to fake injuries on. I can't make this stuff up. Yo, timeout. Remember, neck and back, not head. They had stage directions. These two were literally running a playbook like they're calling plays in a huddle. "Okay, Vince, you go long on the sympathy route. I'll fake left on the neck injury." This is some Criminal Minds episode, except instead of a criminal mastermind, it's 2 dudes in a Nissan Altima and a Chevy Malibu texting each other, "Don't forget to hold your neck." And Cole over here with his $85 dash cam just accidentally blew up their entire operation. Garrett, the buddy who made him get the camera. That man deserves a steak dinner and a trophy. Okay, keep going because the ending is beautiful. Final update. So here's where things stand now, about 3 weeks out from the accident. Dominic's claim was denied. Completely. Rejected. Done. His insurance company also dropped him, which means he can't legally drive until he finds another carrier willing to cover a guy with active fraud charges. Good luck with that. Linda called me personally to tell me the news. My rates were being restored to where they were before the incident, and the accident would be removed from my record entirely. 9 years of clean driving history, restored. She was actually really nice about it. Said in 15 years of adjusting claims she'd never seen dashcam footage that definitely proved staging that clearly. She also said their fraud team wanted to send me a letter of thanks, which was weird, but honestly kind of cool. My car was a different story. The Accord was technically drivable after the tow yard did some basic work. They hammered out the hood enough that it would close, zip-tied the bumper, topped off the coolant. But the frame was tweaked. The body shop estimate came back at about $4,800. My insurance covered it minus my deductible, and Linda said they'd be pursuing subrogation against Dominic for the full amount plus my deductible. So I should be getting that back eventually. Garrett won't stop gloating about the dash cam. Every time I see him, he goes, "Told you so," with the biggest grin you've ever seen. I told him he was right, and I owe him one. He said I owe him more than one. He's probably right. I did some looking into the legal side of things after the arrests, because I'm the kind of person who goes down rabbit holes on stuff like this. In Ohio, insurance fraud is a felony, a fifth-degree felony, for amounts under $7,500, but it scales up based on the value of the claim. Given that Dominic filed for 50 grand and had 3 prior claims that are now being reinvestigated, he's looking at third-degree felony territory. That's up to 36 months per count. And with multiple counts stacking up from the old claims, he's in deep. Way deeper than a neck brace can get him out of. Vince is looking at similar charges for the conspiracy angle. Their text messages basically gift-wrapped the prosecution's case. Like, if you're going to commit coordinated fraud, maybe don't leave a detailed paper trail on the phone you hand to police at the scene. Just a thought. The part that still gets me is how close it came to working. If I didn't have that dash cam, if Garrett hadn't nagged me into buying it, I'd be sitting here with a jacked-up insurance rate, a $50,000 claim against me, and absolutely no way to prove it was staged. Dominic would have gotten his check. Vince would have walked away clean. And they would have done it again to somebody else next month. That's the part that actually makes me angry. Not that they tried it on me, but that they've probably done it to dozens of other people who didn't have cameras. Regular people just driving home from work, trying to do the right thing, who got stuck paying higher premiums for years because of a scam they couldn't prove. Some single mom or some retired guy on a fixed income getting their rates jacked up because Dominic needed a payday. That keeps me up sometimes, if I'm being honest. I installed a rear-facing dash cam last week too. Garrett picked it out. This one was $120, and he said it was an investment in justice, which is the corniest thing he's ever said, but I let him have it. Oh, and one more thing. I never did find out what happened to the blue Malibu. The detective said it was registered to Vince's girlfriend, and she claimed she didn't know anything about what they were using it for. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. That's still hanging out there somewhere. Somebody knows more than they're saying. Brooke says I talk about it too much. She's probably right, but it's one of those things where you keep replaying it because the outcome could have been so different. One decision, buying a cheap camera because your friend wouldn't stop sending you crash videos, changed everything. My boss Ray gave me 2 days off after the accident without docking my PTO, which was solid of him. When I told him the full story, the scam, the dash cam, the arrests, he just sat there shaking his head and then said, "Cole, I've been on the road 30 years, and I've never had anything that interesting happen." Then he went and told the whole office, and now everyone calls me Detective Cole, which I kind of hate, but also kind of don't. Patrick, the senior estimator, said I should put fraud investigator on my business card. I told him to focus on his own job. Anyway, if you drive for a living, or even if you just drive to work and back, get a dash cam. I'm not trying to sound like a commercial, but seriously, $85 saved me $50,000, a fraud charge on my record, and my sanity. That's the best return on investment I'll ever make. So yeah, that's my story. The stuntman and his buddy thought they had an easy mark. Turns out the easy mark had a camera. Am I wrong for feeling like I should send Dominic a thank you card for being so bad at crime? Because honestly, if he'd been even slightly better at this, I'd be the one paying. Listen, man, this is why I love these stories. Cole's just a regular dude driving home from work. He's not a cop, he's not a lawyer, he's a roofer who measures things for a living. And he accidentally dismantled a multi-year insurance scam because his friend made him buy an $85 camera. The stuntman out here running a fake injury ring like he's producing a low-budget movie, and he got taken down by a gadget from the internet. You can't write this stuff. So what do you guys think? Should Cole send that thank you card? Drop it in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe because I promise you the next one is just as wild. See you in the next video.